News just coming in right now. The results are to be announced anytime shortly as far as the VP elections are concerned. But already sources are telling India Today that Jagdeep Dhankar, the NDA's nominee in this election, has secured 528 votes, and Margaret Alva, the nominee from the opposition camp, has secured 182 votes. 15 votes have been deemed invalid in this election. We're expecting an official announcement to be made very shortly by the Lok Sabha Secretary General, who will be addressing a press conference in the Parliament complex. But what sources are telling India Today is that Jagdeep Dhankar, has secured 528 votes in this election, as Margaret Alva secures 182 votes in this election. 15 votes have been deemed invalid in this election. My colleague Aishwarya Paliwal is now joining me live from 11 Akbar Road, Union Parliamentary Affairs Minister Prahlad Joshi's residence, where already celebrations have been underway. News coming in, Aishwarya, right now. A landslide victory, it seems, for Jagdeep Dhankar. Reconnect with my colleague Aishwarya, who is of course standing by at 11 Akbar Road, where Jagdeep Dhankar is present at the moment. There's obviously a lot of loud celebration, which is why possibly Aishwarya cannot hear us at the moment, but there's been a lot of song and dance which has been happening through this evening. Those images on your screens of counting which has been underway. Shortly we're expecting the official results of the Vice President elections to be announced, and we will know who will be India's 14th Vice President. But sources telling India Today already that Jagdeep Dhankar has secured close to 528 votes in this election. My colleague Shreya Chatterjee is now joining me live from 11 Akbar Road. Shreya, landslide victory it seems for Jagdeep Dhankar in the VP elections.
Well, yes, actually, Paulami, and these are the laddus that you are right now getting as they are distributing the massive victory of Jagdeep Dhankar, as he's become the 14th Vice President of India. This is how they are celebrating, by giving laddus to the media person over here. This is the message, you know, they're all very happy, they're over here. क्या कहेंगे आप लोग?
बस हम तो यही कहना चाहेंगे कि हमारे प्रधानमंत्री नरेंद्र मोदी जी ने किसान पुत्र को चुना और हमारे ओबीसी के राष्ट्रपति उपराष्ट्रपति चुने गए जगदीप धनखड़ जी को बहुत बहुत शुभकामनाएं। हम चाहते हैं देश उनके और सदन के नेता और राज्यसभा आगे बढ़ेंगे तो उनके राज में भारत और विश्व तरक्की करे।
As you hear them out, Paulami, they are ecstatic about the win of Jagdeep Dhankar, who we know has secured 528 votes, and the situation right now...
I'd like you to hold on over there, because the press conference of the Secretary General of Lok Sabha, returning officer for this election, Mr. Utpal Kumar Singh, has begun. In just a few moments from now, the Secretary General of the Lok Sabha, who is also the returning officer for the Vice President elections, Mr. Utpal Kumar Singh, will be announcing the results of the elections. Counting has concluded now in the VP elections. Remember, voting began earlier this morning at 11 a.m., concluded at 5 p.m. and now all votes have been counted. And we're just standing by for Mr. Utpal Kumar Singh to announce the results.
So, notice for the election for the office of Vice President was issued on 5th July 2022. In all, 50 nomination papers were received till the last date for submission of nomination papers. After scrutiny, nomination papers filed by Shri Jagdeep Dhankar and Srimati Margaret Alva were found valid. The polling for the 16th Vice Presidential Election 2022, which commenced at 10 a.m. today in the Parliament House, closed at 5 p.m. Out of 780 electors, comprising of elected and nominated members of Rajya Sabha and elected members of Lok Sabha, 725 electors cast their votes. The total elector turnout was accordingly 92.94%. The ballot box was sealed immediately after the close of poll at 5 p.m. in the presence of authorized representatives of contesting candidates and election observers. The counting of votes commenced at 6 p.m. after the ballot box was opened in the presence of authorized representatives of the contesting candidates, election observers, and counting officers. 725 votes were polled, which was 92.94% of the total electorate. 710 votes were found valid and 15 votes were found to be invalid. Thus, the percentage of valid votes is 97.93%. The quota sufficient to get a candidate elected is determined by dividing the total number of first preference votes secured by both candidates by 2 and then adding 1 to the quotient. The quota necessary for being elected to the office of Vice President of India was determined to be 356 votes. On the basis of counting, Shri Jagdeep Dhankar secured 528 first preference votes and Srimati Margaret Alva 182 votes. Therefore, in pursuance of the provisions contained in Section 11 of the Presidential and Vice Presidential Elections Act 1952, 31 of 1952, read with Rule 35 of the Presidential and Vice Presidential Election Rules 1974, I, Utpal Kumar Singh, the returning officer for the Vice Presidential Election 2022, hereby declare that Shri Jagdeep Dhankar, Raj Bhavan, Ward 45, Hare Street, Kolkata 700001, has been duly elected to the office of Vice President of India.
Of the official announcement being made by the Lok Sabha Secretary General, the returning
to the Election Commission of India, Form 7, under Rule 35(1)(c), which is the return of election to the office of the Vice President of India, and also a declaration of result of election under Section 11 of the Presidential and Vice Presidential Elections Act 1952, read with Rule 35 of the Presidential and Vice Presidential Election Rules 1974. Election Commission of India would then prepare the certification of the election of Shri Jagdeep Dhankar as the Vice President of India, jointly signed by the Chief Election Commissioner of India, Shri Rajiv Kumar, and Election Commissioner, Shri Anup Chandra Pandey. Thank you.
official announcement, viewers. Jagdeep Dhankar has won the Vice President elections by landslide victory. Jagdeep Dhankar is India's 14th Vice President. He has secured 528 votes. Margaret Alva, his opponent in the election, secured 182 votes. There were 710 votes that were found valid of the 725 that were cast in this election. 15 were deemed invalid. My colleague Rahul Srivastava, our National Affairs Editor, is now joining me live on this. Rahul, predictably so, Jagdeep Dhankar wins the election, is India's new Vice President, but a landslide victory there. 528 out of 710 valid votes.
Yes, Mr. Dhankar has won. The victory was expected. I think the real story is the votes polled by Margaret Alva. By getting nearly 182 votes, what it actually means that Margaret Alva has received less than 20% votes. And that means if we see last time around, Mr. Venkaiah Naidu word victory was of a lesser margin. And in fact, what we can say is that Rajmohan Gandhi had polled nearly 32% votes. That means that the number of votes polled by the opposition candidate has slipped further. the indication with the BJP NDA votes are at 441. The BJP out of that has 394. 5 nominated MPs were supporting. Akali, BJD, YSR, BSP, TDP, Eknath Shinde group supported Mr. Dhankar. But what it means that the opposition disarray and the divide in the opposition has yet been underlined and highlighted by the victory of Mr. Jagdeep Dhankar.
Absolutely. And what does this mean for 2024? The opposition continues to want to forge some sort of a common alliance against the Bharatiya Janata Party and the NDA against them for the Lok Sabha elections of 2024. But every time some sort of a challenge, some challenge comes forth, they seem to completely fall apart. This time the TMC abstaining from the election, the BSP and the TDP choosing to support Jagdeep Dhankar in the election.
You see, Paula, what is happening to Indian politics is that there have been strong regimes and there have been alternatives after that. But the crisis, I think, today is that if you see 1977, post-emergency, Indira Gandhi made mistakes. After that, there were rallying figures. You see 1989 when VP Singh emerged as a rallying figure. In 77, you heard Jayaprakash Narayan. There were not as many big players. There was no, Congress was a lone big party and rest were small players. There was a unifying factors in terms of leaders and people. I think that brought them together. But if you see the politics today, there is a huge absence of a unifier or a pivot around which the opposition can unite. The Congress perhaps is the only pan-Indian party which has the capability to become the pivot. But the Congress is so terribly diminished now that the Congress cannot act as a pivot. In fact, there are players who want to be the Congress of tomorrow in terms as a central figure as far as the opposition politics is concerned.
देख सकते हैं जैसे औपचारिक घोषणा हुई है या लड्डू
Okay, we're of course getting those pictures that are coming in from Delhi earlier today when Jagdeep Dhankar of course arrived at 11 Akbar Road where celebrations are underway, and then of course images from Jhunjhunu as well, his ancestral home where all of his relatives have gathered, and obviously you can see the celebrations have started over there. Laddus being distributed as well. Shreya Chatterjee is live with me from Delhi from 11 Akbar Road where Jagdeep Dhankar is at the moment. We're already seeing a lot of leaders arrive over there. Shreya, we're expecting the Prime Minister to arrive shortly as well. Take us through what's happening.
Well, absolutely so, Paulami. You know, the stage over here is set. Now the announcement is also formally made, and Jagdeep Dhankar is the 14th Vice President of India. Now, the Prime Minister will also be coming over here. We're also hearing names of JP Nadda to come over here. We already caught Piyush Goyal. Piyush Goyal was already there meeting Jagdeep Dhankar. And where we are here right now, Paulami, I'll ask my cameraman and to show our viewers that chair which is set. Jagdeep Dhankar will come over here so that everyone congratulates him. He'll come and take this seat as everyone formally congratulates him as the 14th Vice President of India. We already got the declaration. He's won with 528 votes. That's a massive victory. That's the reason the celebrations happen over here. We saw people come and give sweets. You can hear the dhols that's playing outside. People singing songs. It's an ecstatic mood here at Prahlad Joshi's house where the celebration for the 14th Vice President of India is already under its way. From a short time from now, we will also see Jagdeep Dhankar himself come and take a seat over here as everyone else congratulates him.
Right, and we're expecting that the Prime Minister will be there shortly as well. He's already on his way. We are being told for, of course, 11 Akbar Road. Only the formal announcement was awaited, which has now been made. Aishwarya, my colleague, is also live with me from the spot. Aishwarya, take us through all the colourful pictures and the celebrations that are already broken out inside the residence of Mr. Prahlad Joshi, where Mr. Dhankar is present, and the Prime Minister will be there shortly as well.
Well, you'll be able to hear the dhol that is taking place inside, the dance that's happening is happening inside. You know, Pradeep is going there and to show you the visuals of the dancers who are dancing on the dhol. Now, you know, In fact, some of the dhol people are being called inside. The visuals that you can see on the screen, Polmi, is of the dance that has broken out. People are now here to congratulate. In fact, if we talk about ministers, now Piyush Goyal has reached, JP Nadda has reached, and we are now seeing the dancers being called here, and the family members, the supporters are now on the dhol, and they are the ones who are now beating the drums to show the celebration. Just a few minutes back, we saw how the laddus which were being distributed by the supporters. Now we are seeing the dance, the pomp and show that is being done by the Bharatiya Janata Party. We saw similar kind of festivities taking place a few days back when Draupadi Murmu had won. And now we are seeing leaders. The BJP President JP Nadda has already reached. We are expecting the Prime Minister to reach here shortly. Home Minister Amit Shah is also expected to come here and to congratulate Jagdeep Dhankar. We saw Jagdeep Dhankar just a few minutes ago walking and meeting Piyush Goyal. So we will see those kind of celebrations taking place. The visuals on your screen now, Polmi, are of the supporters now, beating the drums, showing their celebrations. And let me tell you, the technique of the drumming, the colors that you are seeing, everything is from the state of Rajasthan. People, supporters showing how happy they are, and also we saw the chants of Bharat Mata Ki Jai. We also saw the chants of Jai Jawan, Jai Kisan, simplifying and also emphasizing on the fact that Jagdeep Dhankar, the son of a farmer, and that's also, Polmi, interestingly, the first line that JP Nadda had used when he started the press conference when the BJP and the NDA came out with their vice president candidate. So these are the visuals, Polmi, that we can show you at the moment. Again, the beats, the drums, the celebrations that you see now. Songs of Jai Jawan, Jai Kisan are being sung. People are now waiting for Jagdeep Dhankar to come outside once again. But what we are made to understand, he will come here where we are standing. He will most probably be accompanied by Prime Minister Narendra Modi. There is a chair which has been kept for him here on the stage. But at the moment we are getting you the visuals of the celebrations that are taking place inside Prahlad Joshi's house. The visuals, Polmi, are of the celebration that is taking place. Supporters here. The chants, Polmi, are of Bharat Mata Ki Jai. Similar scenes we had witnessed when Draupadi Murmu had won the election and when she became the president. Similar scenes are now being replicated here at Prahlad Joshi's house. Polmi.
Absolutely. So you can see the celebrations, of course, that are taking place now after it has been formally and officially announced by the returning officer for the vice president elections that Jagdeep Dhankar has in fact won the election and will soon be taking oath as India's 14th Vice President. Prime Minister Modi is also expected to arrive very, very shortly, where Aishwarya is at the moment, in order to personally congratulate Jagdeep Dhankar. Jagdeep Dhankar, who in fact was last seen in the role of governor of the state of West Bengal before the NDA and the BJP, of course, decided to announce him officially as their nominee for the vice president elections. Those pictures also coming in from Jhunjhunu in Rajasthan, from where Jagdeep Dhankar hails. Clearly, a lot of excitement in the air over there, a lot of song and dance as well. Earlier, my colleague was speaking to many of the relatives of the Dhankar family. In fact, Mr. Jagdeep Dhankar's relatives were gathered over there in order to celebrate this moment, which they had, of course, anticipated. So you can see, of course, that Jagdeep Dhankar over there earlier, those pictures from earlier this evening, when he in fact had arrived at Mr. Prahlad Joshi's residence at 11 Akbar Road. Of course, we are waiting for him to in fact step out now, so that those pictures, those live images can be brought to you. Prime Minister Modi will be there very, very shortly. He is already en route, we're told, for 11 Akbar Road. Aishwarya, my colleague, Shreya Chatterjee, they're all in fact joining us live from inside 11 Akbar Road, where celebrations are taking place and are obviously seeing all of those leaders who have already started arriving. Mr. JP Nadda, BJP President, is already there, as well as Piyush Goyal and several such leaders already making a beeline for 11 Akbar Road in order to personally go there and congratulate Jagdeep Dhankar. Jagdeep Dhankar has secured 528 votes in this election. Remember, 725 votes were cast in this election by members of parliament of both the Rajya Sabha and the Lok Sabha, but 15 votes were deemed invalid. So 710 votes were deemed valid. Out of that, Jagdeep Dhankar has secured 528, Margaret Alva secured 182. And that is definitely going to be a matter of introspection for the opposition, which wants to mount this cohesive common front against the BJP ahead of the Lok Sabha elections in 2024. But clearly there are chinks within the opposition camp as well. This time, of course, with the Trinamool Congress deciding to abstain from the elections. Inside 11 Akbar Road, Aishwarya, we're expecting that the Prime Minister will be there very shortly. We believe, as you've been reporting to us, that sweets are being distributed, laddus are being distributed, and the colours of Rajasthan, Aishwarya, are quite evident inside 11 Akbar Road this evening.
Well, Paulami, the visuals are quite telling. The victory sign that you can see, everyone wearing those colourful turbans and the victory sign. Jai Kisan.
Jai Kisan! Jai Jawan! Jai Kisan! Bharat Mata Ki Jai!
So the chants of Vande Mataram and the chants victory sign are the visuals that are a telling tale of the kind of celebration that is taking place inside Prahlad Joshi's house. This is for the celebration, the victory of Jagdeep Dhankar, the NDA candidate for the post of Vice President. So what you see behind me, Paulami, are supporters of the Bharatiya Janata Party. We are seeing how colours of Rajasthan have been brought to the national capital, and not just that, we are also seeing laddus being distributed, the victory sign right behind me. We also saw dhol and dancing taking place. Now everyone is waiting for Prime Minister Narendra Modi to reach the spot. Once he does, we will see more celebrations, more colours. We had seen similar things when Draupadi Murmu had won the election for the post of president, and now everyone is waiting for Prime Minister Narendra Modi to arrive. Piyush Goyal already inside the house, JP Nadda already inside the house. People are also now waiting for Prime Minister to reach. We did see the victory sign, the laddus being distributed, and also the emphasis, Paulami, very important here, the emphasis being made on Jagdeep Dhankar being the son of a farmer. All of them are signs to tell what we could expect in the upcoming elections in the state of Rajasthan. Also, because Bharatiya Janata Party, they have emphasized on the fact that Jagdeep Dhankar is not just from the Jat community, he's also the son of a farmer. So all these things will definitely play their part, and now with this victory we will see Bharatiya Janata Party marching forward. As Paulami, many are also saying this could also be a kind of a semi-final for 2024, and we are seeing the victory one after the other. Draupadi Murmu first and now second. Both the candidates that the NDA and the BJP put forward, both of them have won, so this will have larger implications in times to come also. Paulami.
Absolutely. Larger implications, definitely. The opposition definitely has a lot of introspection to do and a lot of thinking to do because of the numbers. Simply look at the numbers. Jagdeep Dhankar has secured 528 out of 710 votes. Margaret Alva has secured only 182. Let's go across to Jhunjhunu right now in Rajasthan, where my colleague Jai Kishan is standing by. The family of Jagdeep Dhankar there celebrating. Very, very colourful pictures, Jai Kishan, that are coming in from Jhunjhunu. Take us through what's happening around you. Speak to some of the relatives and, of course, how are they feeling in this moment?
It's Diwali time in the land of martyrs, freedom fighters and brave. We are joined by the relatives of Dhankar who are excited and dancing, celebrating the victory of Dhankar. We'll talk to a few of them. कैसा लग रहा है आपको?
बहुत ज्यादा खुशी हो रही है हमें। सबसे जीत का पता चला, सबसे जश्न मनाया जा रहा है, लड्डू वितरण किए जा रहे हैं, नाच गाने हो रहे हैं, बहुत ज्यादा खुशी है हमें जीत की। बहुत अच्छा लग रहा है, हम बहुत खुश हैं। 8 लाख के सारा काम बहुत खुशी से घूम रहा है।
People are feeling very happy over here, and we'll try to talk to.
Okay, we're expecting the Prime Minister to arrive shortly at 11 Akbar Road in central Delhi right now. The Prime Minister, of course, will be personally congratulating Mr. Jagdeep Dhankar. Those images, of course, live images coming in of Prime Minister Narendra Modi, who has in fact reached 11 Akbar Road, who's entering the premises at the moment, being received by JP Nadda, BJP President, who was already present over there. Prime Minister Modi there now going in with BJP President JP Nadda and Union Parliamentary Affairs Minister Prahlad Joshi, at whose residence Mr. Jagdeep Dhankar is at the moment, and where all of those celebrations, of course, have been happening. Prime Minister Modi there arriving in order to extend his congratulations to Mr. Jagdeep Dhankar, who has just won the Vice President election, will soon be taking oath officially as India's 14th Vice President. Prime Minister Modi there now going in to congratulate Jagdeep Dhankar, who's won a landslide victory, a huge morale boost there for the NDA. It remains to be seen how the opposition, of course, reacts to this in terms of the results which have been announced, in terms of the numbers which have been secured by Margaret Alva. Jagdeep Dhankar there being congratulated by Prime Minister Narendra Modi. The first visitor over there, all smiles, of course, because a huge victory, like I said, for the NDA. Already the chinks within the opposition showing, the NDA obviously taking some pleasure in that, because Jagdeep Dhankar has won this election with a landslide victory. A landslide victory, viewers. 528 votes secured by Jagdeep Dhankar out of 710 votes that were valid and were cast in this election. Margaret Alva having secured only 182 votes. Even parties like the BSP and the TDP extended their support for Jagdeep Dhankar. The TMC, of course, abstained from this election because Ms. Mamata Banerjee was not very happy that she was not consulted formally by the opposition parties before they announced at a press conference that Jagdeep Dhankar will be facing off with their nominee, Margaret Alva, in the Vice President elections. Remember, Margaret Alva, of course, having been a member of the Congress party and a senior member that held various positions in the Congress, and then, of course, was serving as governor across the various states as well. Jagdeep Dhankar himself was a governor of West Bengal before he was announced by the NDA as their nominee for this election, and he formally resigned as governor of West Bengal. Prime Minister Modi there having arrived at 11 Akbar Road in central Delhi to extend his congratulations to Jagdeep Dhankar. Let's go across to my colleague Aishwarya Paliwal, who's of course joining us from that very location where Prime Minister Modi is at the moment. Aishwarya, the Prime Minister, of course, has arrived over there. He has, of course, extended his congratulations to Jagdeep Dhankar and is, of course, spending a few moments with him at the moment. This is a big victory for the NDA. They are going to, in fact, savor this moment because this is a huge blow that they've dealt to the opposition and the opposition unity, so to say, as far as this election is concerned, and the results of it speak for themselves. Aishwarya.
Well, definitely we are seeing a lot of cracks. The TMC, the Mamata Banerjee, going out and saying that her entire party will abstain from voting. Now, there could have been other ways through which this could have been resolved. She said that she was not being she was not asked, she was not told about what was being done with the name of the Vice President, and even when she was called, she wasn't given a lot of time. So we are seeing cracks appearing, and that's exactly, that's also something that the Bharatiya Janata Party knows all too well, which is why we are seeing the landslide victory. More than that, we also saw how there was cross-voting which took place during presidential elections. So we did see how there were claims being made that some of the opposition leaders, in fact, had how some of the opposition leaders also, in fact, Polemi had voted in favor of Draupadi Murmu. Now we are seeing the chants coming here. People are saying that the son of a farmer Kisan ka beta zindabad, Polmi, are the chants which you can hear now. So the emphasis that was rightly being put, and we can say that the adjective which was being put right in front of Jagdeep Dhankar's name was the fact that son of a farmer. We also saw, Polmi, if you remember, that when JP Nadda, the BJP president, had announced the name of Jagdeep Dhankar, he started the press conference by saying that we have
for 1 second, Margaret Alva, who was Jagdeep Dhankar's opponent in this election, she has tweeted right now and she has said, congratulations to Mr. Dhankar on being elected Vice President. I would like to thank all the leaders of the opposition and MPs from across the parties who voted for me in this election. Also all the volunteers for their selfless service during our short but intense campaign. She, of course, goes on to tweet further, this election was an opportunity for the opposition to work together to leave the past behind and build trust amongst each other. Unfortunately, some opposition parties chose to directly or indirectly support the BJP in an attempt to derail the idea of a united opposition. It is my belief that by doing so, these parties and their leaders have damaged their own credibility. This election is over. The battle for protecting our constitution, strengthening our democracy and restoring the dignity of parliament will continue. Jai Hind. A big statement there being made by the opposition's nominee viewers, Margaret Alva, saying that unfortunately some opposition parties chose to directly or indirectly support the BJP in an attempt to derail the idea of a united opposition. I'll go across to my colleague Rahul Srivastav right now. Rahul Srivastav, our National Affairs Editor, is live with us. A big statement, Rahul, being made by Margaret Alva there. She, of course, saying that some opposition parties chose to directly or indirectly support the BJP in an attempt to derail the idea of a united opposition. It is my belief that by doing so, these parties and their leaders have damaged their own credibility. Who is she referring to? TMC?
See, I think she's referring to a lot of people, but I think the principal attack is on the TMC, primarily because Mamata Banerjee is one of the key faces as far as the battle against Narendra Modi, in which that unity element is required. Otherwise, the Akali Dal, the BJD, which has supported Draupadi Murmu also, YSR Congress, BSP, TDP and Eknath Shinde faction. So it is directed at all, but I think yes, the principal target is Trinamool Congress, because Trinamool Congress definitely has decided that if there is an opposition space and a leader of the opposition space, the Trinamool Congress wants it. And Trinamool Congress has gone on a path very clearly by indicating its putting its own choice in the president's election in form of Yashwant Sinha and making the entire opposition virtually toe the line. Even the Congress had to fall in line. And then you had the vice president election where Sharad Pawar and Sitaram Yechuri triggered the name of Margaret Alva, but Trinamool Congress refused to back her. And I think with that, if you see the statement by Margaret Alva, who has had a very tumultuous relationship in a certain period with the Congress first family also, I think this statement eventually is not going to help the matters as far as the opposition is concerned, because Margaret Alva might have been pulled out from the cold to be fielded as the candidate to challenge Mr. Jagdeep Dhankar, but the Congress still has to do business with other opposition parties who might have abstained. The Congress may be struggling to create a space for itself to retain that principal opposition party space, but then the Congress has to do business with Trinamool Congress, YSR and others in future. And that is why I think this statement actually does not really help the Congress party or those who are dreaming or planning or plotting a larger opposition unity.
But Rahul, this is not the first time that Margaret Alva has so vocally, in fact, hit out at so-called opposition unity. She is the opposition's nominee and she's spoken previously as well. When TMC announced its decision to abstain from this election and not vote in this election, she had said that this was completely disappointing. So she had gone out there and she had quite clearly hit out at the TMC, again, not helping the cause of opposition unity.
I think that's largely because one, Margaret Alva has always been an outspoken person as a politician, but I think it is also showing the deeper sense of angst within the opposition now for the disarray and the divide which exists in the opposition. Also, I think there is a greater sense of worry in the Congress party with the kind of space that Mamata Banerjee's and Arvind Kejriwal's are trying to create for themselves. Say, for example, in Goa, the Congress's chances took a beating because of a Mamata Banerjee and Arvind Kejriwal. Now you look at Gujarat, for example. You will have an Arvind Kejriwal looking primarily to eat up that space which the Congress used to hold. So I think the Congress, through Margaret Alva or Margaret Alva individually hitting out at Trinamool and other opposition parties, I think depicts that sense of anxiety which now prevails in the Congress party. And I think that's one of the key reasons, as I said earlier, that has prompted the Congress's first family to take to the streets, because it's that space of principal opposition party as a pivot to the opposition unity. All those are being threatened by the likes of Arvind Kejriwal and Mamata Banerjee.
What about the equation, Rahul, between Mamata Banerjee and Sharad Pawar? She, of course, first, during the president elections, she met with Sharad Pawar. In fact, suggested to him, we believe, that he contest the elections for president, and most of the opposition parties were seemingly on board with Mr. Pawar's name. He, of course, asked for the name to be announced, is what we were told, asked for the name to be formally announced at the Constitution Club when they met for an opposition meeting, but then rejected the offer. And then, of course, it was Gopal Krishna Gandhi, and then, of course, Mr. Gandhi said that he won't be a nominee because doesn't seem like everyone's on board with his name. And then, of course, the TMC had to propose Mr. Yashwant Sinha's name. Why do you say that the TMC has had its say in the president elections? They claim, the TMC claims that it was literally forced out of them. Now Mr. Yashwant Sinha can't go back to the TMC. He was National Vice President of the party. So the fact that Ms. Mamata Banerjee chose to ignore the call from Mr. Pawar, in fact, just goes to show that there's something which is amiss between Mr. Pawar and Ms. Banerjee. Okay, we'll try and reconnect with Rahul. At the moment, I'll go across to my colleague Aishwarya, who's of course standing by at 11 Akbar Road right now. Those images coming in from inside the residence of Mr. Prahlad Joshi, which is at 11 Akbar Road. The Prime Minister and Mr. Jagdeep Dhankar, they're all smiles as the NDA secures a massive victory in this Vice President elections. Jagdeep Dhankar there officially announced the winner of this election. He, of course, will be sworn in a few days from now. We expect that swearing-in ceremony to take place on August 11, when he will be, in fact, taking oath as the 14th Vice President of the country. My colleague Aishwarya is live with me at the moment. Aishwarya, the Prime Minister is, of course, congratulating Mr. Jagdeep Dhankar. Are there others who are there as well who have arrived at the residence of Mr. Joshi to congratulate Mr. Dhankar?
Well, we have seen the Prime Minister coming and congratulating Jagdeep Dhankar. We've also seen JP Nadda, who's the President of Bharatiya Janata Party. Piyush Goyal is also inside the house. These are some of the top leaders. We are expecting Home Minister Amit Shah to also arrive in some time. At the moment, we are giving you visuals of the supporters, the people who are happy, those who are now waiting for Jagdeep Dhankar to come from inside the house. In fact, let me also, ask Pradeep to show you the stage which has been made on the other side. There is a chair which has been kept for me, and Jagdeep Dhankar will address the press from here in just a couple of minutes. At the moment, the supporters are here waiting for Jagdeep Dhankar to step out of the house. We are yet to know whether it will be Prime Minister who will be accompanying Jagdeep Dhankar, but it looks like at the moment that the passage that you see filled with people who are wearing these turbans are supporters of Jagdeep Dhankar. They are now waiting for Jagdeep Dhankar to now come and address the media. The stage is already set. We are also expecting some more leaders, Paulami, to arrive at the moment. However, the important ones who have already arrived are the Prime Minister. We have also seen Piyush Goyal, who's inside. We are seeing how many leaders are now tweeting and congratulating, and the very lengthy tweet coming from Jagdeep Dhankar's opponent, Margaret Alva, in which she's spoken about the kind of cracks that are there in the opposition parties, and she's also pointed out the fact that there is no unity in opposition amongst the opposition parties, which is something which is costing them, and which, according to Margaret Alva, also costed her certain votes, because we are seeing that Jagdeep Dhankar has won in a landslide, Polemy. No celebrations, more celebrations are expected at the moment. We did see the laddus being distributed. Now everyone is waiting for Jagdeep Dhankar to step out of the house and then to speak with the media. Polemy.
Right. Aishwarya, of course, bringing us all of those live pictures from inside 11 Akbar Road. Those images on your screens, viewers, of Prime Minister Narendra Modi, who has arrived at that very spot where Aishwarya is at the moment, congratulating Jagdeep Dhankar, who in fact assumed a very vocal role in his past role as governor of West Bengal, was often seen sparring with West Bengal Chief Minister Mamata Banerjee, while he of course assumed the chair of governor of West Bengal. Aishwarya, also give us, if you could speak to some of the people over there, on the ground over there, who are celebrating this moment, BJP party workers and others as well, who are celebrating this moment, to give us a sense of how excited they are to see Jagdeep Dhankar in this coveted position in the second highest constitutional office of the country.
Well, Polemy, we tried speaking with the people who are standing here. However, they have refused to speak. They're only chanting. They're only showing victory signs. They will speak only after Jagdeep Dhankar steps out of the house. They have been given very clear instructions. They can celebrate. They have been distributing laddus. But as far as speaking with media is concerned, that's something that they are not doing at the moment. I believe that they have been given clear instructions. They are waiting for Jagdeep Dhankar to step out of the house and then maybe speak a few words. Only then will we see the supporters come out and speak with the media. However, at the moment, we'll again cut to visuals. Everyone is now waiting for Jagdeep Dhankar to step out. The people here, whom you see, all of them are now just waiting for Jagdeep Dhankar to step out of the house and to come here and speak. His chair is already ready. At the moment, we are not seeing any dhols or any chanting taking place. Everyone is now waiting. And also, Polemy, you'll see that they are looking at one side because that's the way through which Prime Minister went inside. So they are also hoping to catch a glimpse of Prime Minister Narendra Modi, who's still inside the house. So we will see some commotion take place once Prime Minister steps out. At the moment, we understand there are many leaders inside. Prominent amongst them are JP Nadda, who's the BJP president, also Piyush Goyal. We're also expecting the Home Minister Amit Shah to arrive in just some time from now. At the moment, everyone is waiting for the Vice President-elect Jagdeep Dhankar to step out of the house and then to speak with the media. Polemy.
Right, and the charge which has been made by Ms. Margaret Alva, Jagdeep Dhankar's opponent in this election, Aishwarya, is a very serious one. She has always been known to be someone who's very outspoken. She speaks her mind. She's not going to wait for instructions to speak or not to speak. She's someone who speaks her mind. And today she's gone out there and categorically stated that unfortunately some opposition parties chose to directly or indirectly support the BJP in an attempt to derail the idea of a united opposition. This was in fact something which was discussed at length during the president elections as well, that there was a lot of cross voting that happened during those elections, and possibly it's true that it happened during this election as well, which is what Margaret Alva is pointing at, Aishwarya.
Margaret Alva, Polemy, is a veteran politician. She is an old 80-year-old lady who's had decades of political career behind her. So, she's not someone who will speak something just for the sake of speaking it. She is someone who, if she speaks something, if she writes something, then she means it. And if she is saying that the opposition was not together, then definitely, she has felt it, and she would also probably be knowing about some of the cross-voting that has taken place. We did see cross-voting taking place during the presidential elections, but it was not expected during the vice presidential elections. But unfortunately, according to Margaret Alva, that is something that has happened. So we could see the opposition not standing together, not being united, and that's also Polemy, which is something, Polemy, you and I say in the national capital. We understand how almost every week we see these rumors, these names floating of leaders, big leaders from the opposition party going and meeting BJP leaders. So, we are seeing those cracks in the opposition as well, and that's exactly what Margaret Alva is also pointing towards. We are also seeing how the protest march which was being taken out by the Congress party, initially they spoke about that they were fighting because Sonia Gandhi was being called to ED, but then they changed the stance because they understood opposition will only come together when they speak about larger national interest like inflation, like the GST. So all those things are definitely playing on the minds of leaders, and the biggest blow was the fact that the TMC, which has the second largest number of MPs after Congress, they have abstained from voting. So definitely it shows how big a crack there is in the opposition ranks. Follow me.
Absolutely. Let me take that across to Shreya Chatterjee as well, who's joining us from inside Prahlad Joshi's residence, where Prime Minister Modi is presently congratulating Mr. Jagdeep Dhankar. Those images, of course, on your screens of those moments on camera caught as Prime Minister Modi there, in fact, goes ahead and congratulates Jagdeep Dhankar. Shreya, Rahul Gandhi has just tweeted, and while he's congratulated Jagdeep Dhankar foremost, of course, he's also said thank you to Srimati Margaret Alva ji for representing the spirit of the joint opposition with grace and dignity. But unfortunately, what Miss Margaret Alva has also alleged at the same time, outspoken that she is, and a veteran politician that she is, that there were chinks within the opposition, and she's quite upset about it in the tweet and the thread that she's put out on Twitter, where she's categorically stated that there were some opposition parties that directly or indirectly supported the BJP in this election.
Well, Paulami, Margaret Alva's tweet, even if she's not really named the parties, it's very evident that she is clearly hitting out at the TMC who abstained for voting in this particular election. Now, even if Rahul Gandhi has come out and tweeted saying that Margaret Alva represented a joint opposition, clearly it isn't the reality, because we see that the candidate nominated herself, she's coming out and actually attacking the opposition for losing an opportunity to come together as one. And I mean, the reason that she's so outspoken is because the opposition is concerned is no one else but the TMC. Because when it comes to Jagdeep Dhankar, the Trinamool Congress from day one till his last day has been attacking him for every little reason. We've also seen, remember, Paulami, how they actually changed the rule of the Vice Chancellor in the universities there in West Bengal from that of the governor to the chief minister. So that was a very toxic equation between the West Bengal government and Jagdeep Dhankar, and that's the reason why Margaret Alva probably thought that the TMC will stand beside her. That, however, didn't happen. 34 TMC MPs abstained from voting for Margaret Alva, even if the numbers weren't really in favor of Margaret Alva. What probably the opposition lost was an opportunity to be represented as one. Even if Rahul Gandhi tweets and says that this is a message of united opposition, it is in the reality. The cracks are out in the open. It has already been there in open. It's probably only becoming easier for the BJP to send out a message that there is probably in the near future, no real alternative to the Bharatiya Janata Party, which is the ruling party in this country right now.
Shreya and Aishwarya continue to stay with us. We'll cut across now to Jhunjhunu in Rajasthan, where in fact the family of Mr. Jagdeep Dhankar have gathered and are celebrating. My colleague Jaikishan is of course live, and he's been giving us and bringing us all of those updates and pictures from Jhunjhunu at the moment. Jaikishan, if you can hear me at the moment, if you could speak to some of the relatives of Mr. Dhankar as well to get a sense of their sense of excitement and pride this evening as Mr. Jagdeep Dhankar wins a landslide victory in this Vice President election.
Yeah, definitely we'll talk to some of the relatives. We have with the granddaughter of Jagdeep Dhankar.
बहुत ही ज़्यादा अच्छा लग रहा है हम लोगों को. आप देख ही सकते हैं कितनी खुशियों का माहौल छाया हुआ है और बहुत ही अच्छा लग रहा है. हम चाहते हैं कि हम उनके जैसे ही बने और उतनी मेहनत करके अपने देश का और अपने घर वालों को गर्व महसूस करवाएं.
आपको कैसा लग रहा है? आपको क्या लगता है जगदीप धनकर?
बहुत ही खुशी का माहौल है और आप देख रहे हो चारों तरफ नाच गाने हो रहे हैं और बहुत ही हर्षोल्लास का माहौल है.
कितने गर्व की बात है आपके लिए कि एक शेखावाटी का लाल संविधान के इतने सर्वोच्च पद पे पहुंचा है.
बहुत ही बड़ा नाम है और कभी सोचा नहीं था कि इतना बड़ा पद पर भी पहुंचेंगे. क्या
हम कुछ और लोगों से बातचीत करेंगे. आपको कितना गर्व महसूस हो रहा है? We'll show you pictures of the locals dancing here. They are enjoying on the beats of traditional Rajasthani songs, which says that we are very proud of you. We hope that you remain absent from all the negative energies of this world and you stay happy. We are very proud of you. These are traditional Rajasthani songs. We will talk to one of his cousins who have studied with him in Sainik School in Chittorgarh. Sir, Sainik School में आपके साथ जो है पढ़ाई हुई है. इंग्लिश कैसे थे पढ़ने में वो? इंग्लिश कैसे थे पढ़ने में वो? Pardon? जगदीप जी पढ़ाई में कैसे थे? सैनिक स्कूल में आपके साथ पढ़ते थे, कैसे थे?
He was very brilliant. Right from the beginning, he was training and very sharp. Like right from 5th class, he used to top the class.
कितने घंटे वो पढ़ाई पे देते थे? कितना टाइम वो खेल कूद पे देते थे? कितना टाइम वो पढ़ाई पर देते थे?
देखिए वो ऑल राउंड हर एक्टिविटी में हिस्सा लिया करते थे. खास तौर से उनका मेन थर्स्ट एकेडमिक्स के ऊपर था. गेम्स में भी सब फील्ड गेम, फुटबॉल, हॉकी, क्रिकेट खेलते थे. स्कूल में जितने इवेंट्स होती, ड्रामेटिक्स में पार्टिसिपेट किया करते. एलोकेशन कॉन्टेस्ट, डिबेट, ऐसे राइटिंग.
So you can see that people are very happy. They are dancing. Different relatives of Jagdeep Dhankar, you can see them on frame. They are dancing on the Rajasthani beats. They are dancing on the traditional songs, which says that we are very happy and we will join you in all the happiness and success. We will be your savior from all the negativities. Yes.
So Jai Kishan there, of course, speaking to some of the relatives of Mr. Jagdeep Dhankar, even speaking to one of his cousin brothers who in fact went to school with Mr. Dhankar in Chittorgarh in Rajasthan. Also, he's had a very illustrious journey as well, Jai Kishan. If you could speak to his cousin brother and some of those who've seen that journey from being a law student, of course, to someone who very briefly was in the Janata Dal. He was a member of the Rajasthan Legislative Assembly. He was a member of Parliament as well, briefly as well. And then, of course, eventually going in as governor of West Bengal. Jai Kishan.
Yes, he was a very meritorious student while he was studying. He did his law from Maharaja College. We'll talk to some senior members of the village who knows him since the beginning. पढ़ाई में कितना ध्यान देते थे जगदीप साहब?
हाँ जी.
पढ़ाई में कितना ध्यान देते थे जगदीप साहब?
बहुत बढ़िया ध्यान देते थे पढ़ाई के.
कितने घंटे पढ़ते थे जगदीप जी?
हाँ जी.
जगदीप जी कितने घंटे पढ़ते थे?
जगदीप जी 12 से 13 घंटे लगातार पढ़ते थे.
आप बताइए कि उनका बचपन किस तरीके का रहा है? बचपन उनका जगदीप जी का
बचपन में बहुत मिलनसार, बहुत मर्दबासी और पढ़ने में बहुत होशियार थे. शुरू से बचपन से पता लग गया था ये बड़ा कुछ बड़ा करेगा.
You can listen from the people that it was a very hard journey. In 1994, he lost his son. So it was a setback for him. It was a setback for Dhankar. But then coming out of that pain, then trauma, and reaching up to this top level, we talked to his acquaintance, his colleague again.
Coming in from inside 11 Akbar Road, you can see BJP leaders there having gathered now with Jagdeep Dhankar. We presume that Prime Minister Modi has of course left from the residence. Those images of Mr. JP Nadda, BJP President, Piyush Goyal, who in fact is there as well, Prahlad Joshi, Union Parliamentary Affairs Minister, at whose residence these celebrations are being held by the Bharatiya Janata Party. Arjun Ram Meghwal as well on your screens at the moment. BJP of course ecstatic over this victory of their nominee in these vice president elections. You can imagine the excitement in the NDA camp as well, especially because Mr. Dhankar has secured 528 out of 710 votes in this election. It is a mammoth victory that Jagdeep Dhankar has secured for himself and for the NDA in these very prestigious elections to the second highest constitutional office in the country. Those pictures from earlier this evening as well, from a short while ago, when Prime Minister Modi was the first visitor to arrive at 11 Akbar Road to formally go in and congratulate Jagdeep Dhankar after the results were officially announced in Parliament by the Secretary General of the Lok Sabha, who was also the returning officer for the Vice President elections. Margaret Alva, his opponent, Mr. Dhankar's opponent, secured only 182 votes, while Mr. Dhankar secured 528 out of 710 votes. A big blow for the opposition, especially because the TMC chose to abstain in these elections. The TMC's argument being that when the Congress and the NCP came together along with other opposition parties to announce the nomination of Miss Margaret Alva, Miss Mamata Banerjee was not consulted. Remember, Mamata Banerjee had taken the lead, in fact, as far as the opposition's choice for the president was concerned. She had consulted Sharad Pawar and in fact formally suggested that he contest the elections for president, and most of the opposition parties, in fact all of the opposition parties, were on board with Mr. Pawar's name, but Mr. Pawar said that he wanted to stay in electoral politics. He did not want to contest the president's election. Then of course the name of Mr. Gopal Krishna Gandhi did the rounds, but Mr. Gandhi himself, after being consulted by some of the opposition leaders, chose to pull out of the race because he felt that he did not have the support of all opposition parties as far as his own candidature was concerned, his prospective candidature was concerned. And then the TMC proposed the name of Yashwant Sinha to take on the NDA's nominee, then Draupadi Murmu. Yashwant Sinha was a member of the TMC. He was National Vice President of the TMC when he chose to step aside from the Trinamool Congress and contest the president elections. Draupadi Murmu, of course, defeated Yashwant Sinha in the president elections, and the TMC then stepped away as far as the opposition's campaign to take on the BJP and the NDA's nominee in the vice president election was concerned. Ms. Mamata Banerjee there saying that a lot of the MPs within the TMC felt that because they were not formally consulted and were only told last minute about the nomination and the choice of Ms. Margaret Alva as the opposition's nominee, with only just a few minutes to go before a press conference to formally announce that name, Ms. Mamata Banerjee chose to stay away from this election. So all her MPs, the TMC has 36 MPs in Parliament, 34 of them abstained today and did not cast their vote. Two, in fact, in an embarrassing moment for the TMC, cast their vote. Shubhendu Adhikari's father, Shishir Adhikari, and Dibyendu Adhikari, brother of Shubhendu Adhikari, cast his election. Those pictures, of course, of the celebrations that are happening inside 11 Akbar Road as members of the BJP celebrate this moment of Jagdeep Dhankar's landslide victory in the vice president elections, which